This morning, the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs was scheduled to have its annual hearing on threats to the homeland, but it was postponed after the heads of the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI refused to appear to provide public testimony. Now, this is the first time that this has happened in more than 15 years. Why? Why this year of all years? Join me now to discuss this and more, Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, who serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. He's also vice chair-elect of the Senate Republican Conference. Senator Lankford, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you. Good to be back with you again.
All right, so why? Why no show? Why did they not show up to share with the American public the threats that exist out there?
Yeah, what's interesting is they had actually we had originally asked for this hearing in September. They had come back and said, hey, we don't want to do it right before the election. We feel like it will be too political. And so we postponed it till right after the election. And then literally today they come out and say, we don't want to come. We'll come in a classified setting, but we don't want to be in an open setting. This is Mayorkas, so we're obviously talking about immigration issues. And this is Christopher Wray. There are 2 major issues that are still moving right now that both of them need to not just answer for, but inform the American people of. We tried to get the number of what's called special interest aliens out of DHS for months, and they will not come out even to us with that number. And apparently we're not willing to be able to talk about it today. And there's been a major hack of our telecommunications system by the Chinese that I was planning and already informed Christopher Wray, we need to talk about this in a public setting so the American people can know more about it. And then they failed to be able to even show up today to be able to talk about it. So they knew the topics. They just bailed and said, we don't want to talk about them.
Is it that bad that they don't want to tell the American people what has happened on their watch?
I actually have no idea why they would possibly do that. They said we'll come in a classified setting, but a classified setting doesn't help the American people to be able to know what's happening. And our committee is not trying to be able to attack them personally, but we are trying to be able to deal with what's happening. This is not a political thing. We're past an election. But the American people need to know what the Chinese are doing. We need to know the threats. We need to know what's actually happening and some of the things that are still present in our country from a wide open border. So we'll know how to be able to process those things together.
And when it's in a classified setting, as you said, the American people, they can't observe what is being shared in that hearing, but you can't talk about it either if it's classified.
That's correct. So it's not just I know the information now as well, but then it's restricted for how I can actually distribute that information. There are aspects of this that can be discussed. The FBI just yesterday in this hack of the telecom system, the FBI put out a veiled response on that yesterday and made a public statement on it. Say, okay, if you can put that public statement out, why can't you come and just make a broader statement publicly in a non-classified setting?
Other breaking news today, Senator Lankford, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who had been tapped by President-elect Trump to be the Attorney General, announced this afternoon he's withdrawing from that after spending yesterday on Capitol Hill meeting with some senators. What were you hearing about that potential confirmation process with former Congressman Gaetz?
Everyone I know of had already said, hey, this is the president's pick. We want them to go through the whole process on it. Obviously, we're preparing, starting the meetings yesterday. I was not in any of those meetings yesterday, but people were saying, okay, let's give it a fair shake. Let's get a chance to be able to go through the process. He'll have public testimony that will come out in the days ahead. And then he withdrew today. So I don't know what that final vote would have been and where people would have landed and voted on it. But I do know everyone was committed to actually going through the full nomination process. That's the responsibility the Senate has to do advice and consent. When the president nominates someone, the Senate should take them up and actually give them a fair shake to be able to go through the process and allow them to be able to speak publicly, not just through the press on it. Obviously, that's not going to happen. The president will be able to find another good attorney general. There's a lot of great options that are out there for attorney general that will be good in the law, good at trying to be able to restore some kind of trust back in the Department of Justice again.
Now, that role that the Senate plays is not a rubber stamp. Now, I know that even if the president's of the same party, it is an official role of advice and consent. So the Senate has to, as you said, go through the process, vet the candidate, make sure that they are qualified.
Right. Everyone's passionate about the Constitution. So are we. And for some people that have said, hey, if Trump picks someone, we should just automatically do it. I'm like, hey, that's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says the Senate has an advice and consent role, which we should take seriously through the process on that and make sure that we're working together, that every person in the executive branch, all these cabinet officials, that they do represent the American people and the views of the president and the policy directions of it. Now, the president has some people, as you know, like Elon Musk, that will be an advisor to the president, will work on government efficiency. Elon's not going to be in the cabinet. That's not what he's asking Elon Musk to be able to do. He'll be an advisor to the president. The president can pick his own advisors like that, and they don't go through Senate confirmation. But if they are a cabinet official, they do constitutionally go through that Senate confirmation.
Well, you're going to have an opportunity to practice that a lot in the next, as we get into toward January, because there's already been a number of people that have been tapped. The president's wasting no time in putting his team together. I want to switch gears once again to Senator Lankford. Also today, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, this is, and I was talking about this earlier in the program with Congressman Chris Smith. We're not a party to the ICC, but nonetheless, this affects one of our critical and strategic allies.
It does, actually, and this is, again, a reminder of why we're not a participant in the International Criminal Court, is because they are a rogue entity that is practicing things like this. Saying that, hey, they're going to actually try to prosecute the leader of a country that was attacked with acts of terrorism, that still has hostages, that's taking inbound missiles and rockets every single day from terrorist organizations. They want to reach in at that moment and to be able to try to arrest and prosecute the leader of that country that's being attacked. That is absolute insanity. So we need to continue to be able to stand with our ally, Israel. We need to call out the International Criminal Court for who they are. The House has already said that they want to be able to sanction leaders of the ICC on that. The Senate and Chuck Schumer has failed to even take up that bill that the House has overwhelmingly passed, but the Senate's not even taking it up for debate even. So let's just call it out for what it is on that and say we're going to continue to pray for peace in Jerusalem and for the entire region. We pray for all those civilians and individuals that are affected, all those families that are waiting for their loved ones to come home, that their loved ones are hostages being held in Gaza. But we also want to see the chicanery stop from the International Criminal Court.
Just about 25 seconds left, but that's going to change come January when the Republicans are in control of the United States Senate. I look to that body being much more friendly toward our ally Israel.
Yeah, I would assume it would be by far, just based on even the vote that happened yesterday with Senator Sanders brought up a vote to be able to cut off arms sales to Israel. 19 Democrats supported that, not a single Republican. Things like that are not going to be the games in the Senate anymore. Let's focus on what we're going to do to end that war, bring peace to the region, and stand with our allies.
All right, Senator James Lankford, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
You bet. Good to see you again, Tony.